Welcome to the Washington Youth Challenge Academy Policies and Regional Advocate Training. This training consists of a short video followed by a 5-question form. During the video, you will also be asked to take a 10-question yes or no quiz. You may want to have a paper and pen handy to jot down your answers. Being a regional advocate for the Washington Youth Challenge Academy is the same as being a WYCA volunteer. This means that our hands-off leadership and mandatory reporting policies apply. We will also discuss ACEs and private logic. The hands-off leadership policy states that no staff member or volunteer may touch a cadet or use abusive language as a means of coercive leadership. We are expected to lead through positive methods that do not include the use of physical force or verbal abuse. While we must ensure that our voices can be heard by using our command voice, we do not yell, scream, insult, call names, swear, use derogatory language, or be disrespectful in any way. We also need to be careful about any jokes and slang that we use with or around cadets. A hands-off policy does not mean that we are not allowed to touch cadets. We are social beings, and a healthy, respectful touch can be a great way to strengthen relationships. Handshakes, high fives, fist bumps, and appropriate hugs can be great, although it's always a good idea to ask permission first and allow cadets to set their own personal boundaries. Mandatory reporting is a Washington state law, and as a WYCA regional advocate, you're now a mandated reporter. Mandatory reporting is also something that can make people nervous because it sometimes feels like walking a line between safety and trust. On one hand, cadets need to be safe, but at the same time, we don't want them to think we're violating their trust. That is why we can never promise to keep secrets. Cadets revealing reportable circumstances and events is a function of the trust they have in you and in your relationship. Cadets learned about mandatory reporting at the Academy, but they will forget. When talking with others, we sometimes get a sense that they're about to say something sensitive. If you get that feeling, this can be an excellent opportunity to pause them and remind them that you're a mandated reporter. Now, this sounds really awkward, but it can be as simple as, hey, before you continue, I want to hear what you want to share with me, but I value our relationship enough that I need to remind you I'm a mandated reporter. You can then invite them to continue or ask them if they remember what mandated reporting means. Either way, you are demonstrating respect by giving them choices. And if they blurt out sensitive information before you can remind them, that's okay too. We'll cover that in another slide. A report needs to be made when a cadet opens up about a past incident or present condition of neglect or abuse of a child which has not already been reported, whether that's emotional, physical, or sexual in nature. They may be speaking about themselves, a sibling, a friend, or someone else they know. The age of consent for sexual activity in Washington state is 16. Washington does not have a close-in age exemption, which are sometimes called Romeo and Juliet laws. There are no protections reserved for sexual relationships in which one participant is a 15-year-old and the other is 16 or 17. The age of consent is raised to 18 and 21 when certain adults are involved, such as a foster parent or a teacher. Emotional abuse is a sustained, repetitive pattern of behavior that affects a child's emotional development or sense of self-worth. This can include constant criticism, threats, rejection, confinement, or withholding of love, support, or guidance. Neglect can be neglect of physical, emotional, or educational needs. Another reportable situation would be a cadet's participation in criminal activity. Mandated reporters must make the report at the first opportunity, but in no case should it be longer than 48 hours after you have a reasonable cause to believe that the cadet has suffered abuse or neglect. The report must include the identity of the accused if known. You can always call your Washington Youth Challenge Academy case manager for support or to discuss the possibility of making a report. It's better to over-report than to risk a cadet being in danger. So, how do you make a mandated report? If you feel it is an emergency or you have concerns that your cadet might be at risk of self-harm or suicide, please dial 911. Washington State has a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week hotline. The number to report abuse is 1-866-END-HARM. Questions that will be asked when you call 1-866-END-HARM include the name, address, and age of the child, the name and address of the child's parents, guardians, or other persons having custody of the child, the nature and extent of the abuse or neglect, any evidence of previous incidences, or any other information which may be helpful in establishing the child's abuse or neglect and the identity of the perpetrator. You do not need to have all of this information when you call to make a report, but the more accurate information you can provide, the better equipped the offices will be to assess the child's safety and respond appropriately. Details do matter. There is also a number for Youth Suicide Prevention Hotline. This is a hotline for the cadet to call and talk themselves if they're not comfortable talking to you, or even if they are comfortable talking to you and they simply want additional support. That number is 1-800-273-TALK. Abuse and neglect make people feel powerless. This feeling can be made worse if the youth didn't mean to reveal reportable information. Suddenly, they may worry that you will spill their secret. Many times, abuse includes threats of even worse happening if the child tells anyone. Sometimes these threats include bad things happening to other people, so children may be taught to believe that keeping the secret and being abused or neglected themselves actually serves to protect someone else. When a cadet reveals something that needs to be reported, we have an opportunity to return a little bit of that power to them by giving them choices. The report will be made, but they can exercise some power over how the report is made. Some of the options include they can make the call themselves with you either in the room or on the call for support. They can be with you while you make the call, which can be on speaker, so they know exactly what is said. You can make the call yourself without their involvement, and you can report back, or not, as they choose. There are other options as well. The only choice that isn't on the table is no report being made. Similarly, they can't really make the report solo because the reality is they won't make it, and you have an obligation to make sure that the report gets made for their safety. Allowing them to choose how the report is made has several benefits. It returns a degree of power and choice back to the cadet. It demonstrates a respect for the cadet as well as for their ability to make good decisions. It builds the relationship and the trust between the two of you. It provides an opportunity to increase the communication and work through a difficult situation. It also increases the sense of teamwork and decreases isolation. A hallmark of abuse and neglect is isolation. Having secrets is very lonely. Sharing them is very scary. Talking through the difficult situation lets them know that they're not alone and they no longer have to carry the burden all by themselves. What are ACEs? ACEs stand for Adverse Childhood Experiences. Research has shown a significant correlation between what happened to us as children and our health as adults. In 1995 and 1997, the original researchers, Drs. Robert Anada and Vincent Felletti, surveyed over 17,000 members of a largely middle-class, college-educated population in San Diego. They found 64% had at least one adverse childhood experience. As they compared scores to health histories, they realized that a higher ACE score indicated a greater risk of health issues. When compared to someone with no ACEs, a person with an ACE score of 4 had twice the risk of cancer and heart disease. Someone with an ACE score of 5 was 8 times more likely to become an alcoholic. On average, those with 6 or more ACEs died 20 years earlier than those with no ACEs. Since that original study, additional research has shown the results to be consistent across all demographics. Adverse childhood experiences impact the development of our brain and immune system. Without positive experiences mitigating this impact, higher ACEs can lead to a host of long-term health and behavior challenges, such as obesity, diabetes, substance abuse, cancer, depression, stroke, and heart disease, just to name a few. ACEs tend to be generational, passed through family units. However, Dr. Anata points out, what's predictable is preventable. ACEs are not destiny. PACEs, protective and compensatory experiences, can act as a buffer against ACEs and promote healing. Some PACEs include spending time with a best friend, volunteering or helping others, actively participating in a social group, having a hobby, being physically active or playing sports, and having routines and fair rules at home. Understanding adverse childhood experiences can help empower individuals to make changes for themselves and their children. The ACEs survey follows. Please answer the 10 yes or no questions for yourself to find your own ACEs score. Before your 18th birthday, did a parent or other adult in the household often or very often swear at you, insult you, put you down or humiliate you, or act in a way that made you afraid that you might physically be hurt? Did they push, grab, slap, or throw something at you, or even hit you so hard that you had marks or were injured? Before your 18th birthday, did an adult or person at least 5 years older than you ever touch or fondle you, or have you touch their body in a sexual way, or try to, or actually have, oral, anal, or vaginal sex with you? Did you often feel that no one in your family loved you, or thought you were important or special? Or your family didn't look out for each other, feel close to each other, or support each other? Did you often feel you didn't have enough to eat, had to wear dirty clothes, and had no one to protect you? Or your parents were too drunk or high to take care of you or take you to the doctor if you needed it? Before your 18th birthday, were your parents ever separated or divorced? Was your mother or stepmother often pushed, grabbed, slapped, or had something thrown at her? Or sometimes or often kicked, bitten, hit with a fist, or hit with something hard? Or ever repeatedly hit over at least a few minutes, or threatened with a gun or knife? Did you live with anyone who was a problem drinker or alcoholic, or who used street drugs? Before your 18th birthday, was a household member depressed or mentally ill, or did a household member attempt suicide? Did a household member go to prison? Every yes on the previous 10 questions counts as an ACE. ACEs and private logic. ACEs are our experiences. Our experiences create our private logic. Everyone carries around their own invisible backpack of private logic, and each of us has filled it with different ideas, beliefs, and perceptions based on our personal experiences. Adverse childhood experiences scores range from 0 to 10. Our cadets at the Academy average almost 3 ACEs, with some individuals reaching 9 and even 10. Those experiences help to create the cadets' private logic. Did you happen to answer the questions in the previous slides yourself? Every yes is an ace. What was your score? How might that have impacted your own private logic? What goes in the backpack comes out as behavior. If cadets' lives have been filled with fear, abandonment, and anger, their private logic will be consistent with those experiences. They will view themselves as scared and powerless. Other people won't be trusted, and the world to them will be a frightening place. If their lives have been filled with comfort, connection, and love, cadets' logic will be consistent with those experiences. They'll view themselves as capable and valued. They will see others as consistent and approachable. And they will view the world at large as filled with opportunities for good and hope. Private logic makes even the most unexpected, irrational, unstable, and even aggressive behavior 100% rational to the individual in the moment. We cannot use logic to reason with someone who's reacting emotionally. Strong emotions shut down the rational part of the brain. Cadets who are emotional will need help calming down before they can hear and process reason again. Even when calm, they may not be able to understand that their private logic isn't always aligned with a wider reality. ACEs affect brain development. It takes time and repeated positive experiences to counter their effects. Our long-term goal with cadets is to help fill their invisible backpacks with new experiences and perceptions, to help them create a new, more supportive, community-based reality. All Washington Youth Challenge Academy policies boil down to respect and safety. Mandated reporting is nothing to be afraid of. If you aren't sure it needs to be reported, call or text your case manager. If a report needs to be made, it's an opportunity to help the cadet build resilience and take some power back. Give them the chance to guide how the process will happen. These conversations demonstrate to the cadet that scary and even overwhelming situations can be navigated and they're not alone. Many of our cadets have had negative experiences that have impacted their brain development and affected their view of the world. Understanding they may be impacted even if they haven't shared how can help put their behavior and their choices in perspective. Working with teenagers is both an immensely rewarding and frustrating journey. Growth can happen in fits and starts, and far too often we may wonder if it's happening at all. Please know that even if you think nothing is happening and you're wasting your time, they are watching. What we may actually be doing in those nothing's happening moments is we are planting seeds. Some seeds take longer to sprout than others. Be patient. Be persistent. Show them they can count on you. This concludes the Washington Youth Challenge Academy Regional Advocate Training. Please take a moment to click on the link and complete the 5 questions that cover this video. And as always, thank you for being willing to support these cadets.